Illegal secret changes is what a lawyer challenging the rewording of New York's casino referendum is now saying that the state did. He says transcripts show that the state did not hold a required vote to change the wording, and critics say that creates a proposal that doesn't show the whole picture. And joining us now, our political analyst, New York Post state editor, Fred Dicker. And Fred, this is an interesting story, something we've actually discussed before after a Siena poll came out showing that people were swayed by the wording of this. And that's what's at play here. That's what is that question.
No question about it, Liz. It really is a very interesting story, and it's dangerous for the governor because it looks like the governor or his people intervened to change the original language for the referendum that's going to be on the November ballot from the language that had been suggested, a more neutral language, suggested by Attorney General Eric Schneiderman. Now there's this enterprising lawyer from Brooklyn who about a week and a half ago we learned had brought a Article 78 action in state Supreme Court here in Albany, challenging the language, saying it violates the law because it's designed and written in a way to encourage a positive vote. Now he follows up with additional information he made public today, I think through the Associated Press, in which he says apparently the language was changed illegally because the Board of Elections, which has the authority to establish the language, didn't hold a proper meeting. Well, if that's the case, and he does seem to have some evidence, that's a real embarrassment to the Board of Elections and the governor because, as I said, it appears the governor's people, if not the governor himself, were behind this language change.
Yeah, from what I understand, the AP was reporting that the Board of Elections might have changed the wording by a phone call, which would not qualify under the open meetings law, right?
Absolutely right. That's what it is. It has to be a legal action taken to change that language, and if they didn't do it legally, could very well be that the action could be tossed out by a judge who has the courage to do it. And just to refresh everybody's memory about this, basically the wording now points out all the positives in terms of jobs being created, the benefit to education, et cetera. And as I mentioned, a Siena poll showed that while people were first presented with the idea of casino gaming, they may not have been in favor of it. When they heard all that, they seemed to change their minds. Well, Liz, you're absolutely right. It presents the positives, but it somehow forgot to mention the negatives, and there clearly are negatives. This is what's known as tendentious language. It's biased language. It shouldn't be tolerated. It's prohibited by past practices in New York and arguably by New York law itself. It's electioneering by the very politicians who are supposed to be presenting all of us with a fair choice here on whether, on a very serious issue, whether to amend the Constitution to permit legalized commercial gambling.
Hey, I want to give you a chance to make a quick statement on the Moreland Commission making news again today.
Yeah. The Times had quite a story today, the New York Times, in which they outlined internal problems with the Moreland Act Commission to the point where it looks like the commission, and I've talked about this before, being sort of desperate to try to find anything. It's run into clashes with the governor and his people. The governor is second-guessing them now, telling them what they can and can't do, even though it's supposed to be an independent commission. And probably most significantly in the story, and it did look like it was a trial balloon, the suggestion was that the governor is prepared to end the Moreland Act Commission's investigation if the legislature will now pass some of the so-called reform laws that he had proposed in June and were rejected. So it looks like the governor is in some trouble here, as he is with that language issue involving the constitutional amendment. Two bad stories, and if they're true, I think bad events dealing with Governor Cuomo.
All right, well, let's stay on top of them. I know you will, certainly, and bring them back to us when you get some new developments.
Will do.
Thank you very much, Fred. And Fred's on the radio live from the state capitol, weekday mornings 10 to 11 on Talk 1300 AM.